Today's short story is an original called The Lady of the Sea. For all of my videos, for at least to start with, until I can get my iPad back up again, I will be using Tiny Glade to illustrate a lot of the stories and backgrounds. Today's story is an original called The Lady of the Sea. Let us begin. Catherine Amon was a woman of many talents. She had a relatively normal life close to the Everglades and beautiful stretches of white sand beaches in southeastern Florida. She yawned, stretched. Her throat was sore, and she found for the second time this week her mouth was dry. Incredibly dry. Absurdly, terribly dry. She checked her phone and saw an email from her boss asking if she could take on a shift for a coworker. She texted back, "I'll do it." Extra hours were always nice. A new pair of shoes, a special treat, maybe even a small shopping spree of $50. She kicked the sheets away and stretched her feet and toes, finding they feel strange, unyielding. She must have been dehydrated the night before, she decides. She reached over and sipped the water out of the bottle she kept on the side of her nightstand, returning the phone to its place. She could hear her roommate moving around on his side of the duplex, faint footfalls thudding around the room. She shook her head fiercely. It was just the vestiges of the dream she saw in her head the night before, trapped under water in a cool, deep, dark pond. The watering tundra still felt close to her skull. She rolled out of bed and walked down the hallway covered in her paintings. The clock on her wall next to her bathroom read 8:30 a.m., and she had to be at work at 10. Apparently, one of her coworkers' kids started vomiting blood and ran an extremely high fever. The little boy had to be hospitalized, and she'd need to sit with her coworker would need to sit with the ill little one. Catherine felt a little sad for the boy. She took a long shower, with the clock reading 9:15 when she got out of the shower and fully dressed. She went to the kitchen and made herself lunch before picking up a small bag full of bottled water and taking it with her. She was intending to stop doing this, but the water fountain at work had been down for a week by now, and she wasn't about to drink the funky-smelling water that came out of the work bathroom unless she had to. She checked that she still had all of her things before and looked around. She walked through the door to the kitchen and knocked on the door on the other side. "Kev, I'm heading to work. I'll see you when I get home. And don't forget to sign for the mailman today." "All right, Catherine. Stay safe out there." She locked her living room door with her key and stepped through the duplex kitchen, the only other connection between the two sides of the duplex being in the back patio. She got in her car and drove to work, clocking in around 9:50 a.m. She set her stuff on her desk and her lunch in the staff fridge. It was going to be a long day, she decided, when the first person to show up at her desk was covered in scratch marks and screaming about scraping off his scales. She did his intake paperwork and sighed. Sometimes she wondered why she'd taken this job as a receptionist and intake nurse for the psychiatric ward. Why she always picked up extra shifts, why she cared so much about this job. Barely even pay the bills, and these extra hours were the only way she could afford nice things for herself. A cheap new pair of shoes, a bottle of nice wine from the local Sam's Club, some cherries during the store during harvest season, or even a nice set of hand sanitizer from Bath and Body Works. Nice things. Little things. Barely affordable things. The thought made her angry. She'd sell another batch of her paintings this weekend, she decided. The day seemed to drag on forever. It was afternoon, and the morning sunlight had faded from the lobby, retreating back outdoors where it came from. She'd nibble on the small sandwiches she brought with her for lunch and guzzle down so much water that she needed to use the bathroom twice before 1 p.m. "Hello, miss. I was wondering where the bathroom was." A small, articulate child, her hair barely peeking over the desk. "I really need to go. Thank you." She pointed her toward the bathroom. She watched a little girl dash off, skirts twirling around her little legs, hair a blur of colors and movement, pigtails and ribbons. The girl seemed unnaturally fast. Catherine shook her head again. The day was really too long. The clock at her desk read 2:30. Just 3.5 more hours to go until this extra shift ended. She went to use the restroom herself for the third time that day. As she passed a mirror, she got a glimpse of iridescent hair. She shook the curls a little, admiring the way the light played off of them. She blinked once, twice, and her hair was back to its normal auburn color once again. I've got to stick picking up all these shifts. They're driving me mad. 6 p.m. finally came, and not a moment too soon. It was all too much again, like it normally was. She went back and used the bathroom one more time before leaving her job. As she prepared to wipe, a small patch of silvery skin on the back of her right hand caught her eye. Scales. Silvery scales. Just a few, and a small patch on the back of said hand. Nothing more. When she finished wiping and pulling her pants back on, the scales were receding back into her skin. She flushed, sprinted to the sink, and scrubbed her face and hands. This could not be happening. I'm fine, just sleep deprived. I'd worked 2 12-hour shifts all weekend and picked up an extra shift today when I shouldn't have. Yeah, that's all. I won't come back until Thursday. As long as I get some rest, I should be fine. No more shifts, not tomorrow or Wednesday. Maybe Wednesday. She shook her head, gathered her things, and left. If it wasn't for this drive, this need to do something, she would have lost this job years ago. She pulled into the driveway, killed the engine, and slowly, carefully unlocked the door to the duplex. Her heart thundered in her chest, wondering if she was truly going mad. Maybe she needed to stay in the ward herself. Someone else could serve as her intake nurse. She slinked back into the duplex and sat down on her bed, careful to avoid her roommate. The scales reappeared slowly while she watched TV. When she looked down, they had covered her right hand and wrist. She ran her hand over them. They were beautiful. It was like they'd always been there. Silvery scales caught the light from the TV at their edges, giving off a blue-green glow. It was striking. Then she blinked, and they were gone again. She swore under her breath and made a note to herself to call the psychiatrist the next day. She went to wash up, made herself dinner, and called it an early night. The day was way too much, and she needed some help with the crazy things she saw. The hair, the scales, the dreams. So many dreams, all more vivid and horrible than the next. It was the next morning at dawn when she awoke, after a night of fitful, eventful sleep. The sound of the sea whispering, calling to her tired ears. Her roommate called to her, confused, but before he had anything to say, she was already gone. She climbed in her car and cranked the engine, driving in a furious tear down the road. She couldn't stand it, the song, and the dryness of her skin in her mouth. When she pulled up at a wharf, she felt relief crashed over her. She was almost where she needed to be, where she had to be. She stripped naked. She panted, jumped out of her car, and ran across the beach. The waves called, and her skin erupted into scales. Her chest burned as she choked and gasped as she desperately shot out the water she needed. Her legs gave way as she shoved herself into the water, gasping for air. She disappeared into the black waves. Lost to Kevin, lost to time, lost to legend. Some say she's still out there, off the coast of eastern Florida, and you may see her one day when she decides to sun herself on the rocks and the waves.